Welcome back to another episode of No Longer Afraid. I'm so glad you're joining me on this wonderful Tuesday morning. I am thrilled today. I have such a special guest with me, my friend Zhenya Tupikov.
Hi
Yay! Zhenya, welcome.
guys.
We have been trying to do this for months and
Ever.
months.
Yeah.
I know. She was actually one of the first guests that I've wanted to have on because just how closely knit I feel to your story, Zhang,
Mm,
everything you have walked through, and just continuing to watch God unfold in your
yeah.
story because there's a lot to unpack.
So much.
Yeah. And I want to dive right in because I feel like there are so many important and just powerful pieces in your story that are going to minister to people that are listening. And you are just another person that can really deeply impact with your testimony. I believe you are a friend, a wife, a
Mm,
mama. So maybe just introduce yourself, like even just go back
yeah.
to the beginning. Did you grow up in the States? How old were you when you came to
Yeah.
America? Just give us a brief summary of the backstory and then we'll dive in.
Yeah. So I came to United States when I was about 12 years old. And so I think it was a little bit rough trying to get into the community. And
Hmm.
I had no Russian friends. I didn't look Russian, so I had no Russian friends. All my friends were like Hispanics
I
or
love it.
African American. So my English went from like 0 to 100 within like less than a year.
Impressive.
People were like, "You have no accent. What in the world?" And I was like, "Yeah, well, I don't really have Russian friends."
Yeah.
Anyways, so
How old were you?
12 when I
12.
came to,
Wow.
so it was like
That's a
sixth
tough
grade. Sixth
age.
grade was rough. Yeah. I'm like trying to learn English, but also history at the same time. Like,
Yeah.
what? Like, how do
I
you do
love it.
this? Anyways,
Wow.
so it was good, but I think high school was a little rough. I was a little I mean,
Rebellious.
yeah, a little rebellious if you want to say that. Childhood in general was a little rough for us, just like
Hmm.
growing up. We it wasn't like a we didn't have like that Christian family you always think about. Like
Wow.
it was and I think we once we moved to the States, we really like tuned into a church and like got
Okay.
plugged in. And
Okay.
but that was like that adjustment was a little bit rough, but I think it all worked out for the best.
When did you like personally start pursuing Jesus for your own
I
life?
think it was at Church of Truth. I
Okay.
remember this moment. I came out to just it was just so rough. Like I think the same year my dad has left us
Hmm.
to back to Russia, and just like without letting us know. And it was
Wow.
like I was 15 years old, I think, at the time, and like I was working a full-time job and paying all the bills, helping my mom pay all the bills. And so that was a little rough, and just like not
Wow.
seeing any checks, you're just like, okay, this is here, this is here. And so that was, and I think that I hit like a little bit of a rock bottom then, and just kind of came to an encounter with the Lord then, and
Wow.
just remember that like it was just so powerful.
Wow.
I think I was about 15. Yeah, and then kind of fast forward to high school, college. I went to college, and um and then met my husband somewhere around there.
Yeah.
um Fell in love, not at first sight, that's for sure.
It was a
uh,
pursuit on his end.
yeah, it took a while, but it was good. I think it was he came from a little wild crowd, and
Yeah.
I just continued to like see so much of like Jesus in him, that it
Wow.
was like I just kept falling in love with that. And it was like he just kept becoming like more and more like attractive to me, and I was like,
Mm.
okay, like I really really like this guy, where you're like, okay, you can't sleep anymore, you really like this guy. Anyways, so he proposed, we got married in 2016. And like a year later, we just like really wanted to have children, and we're
Yeah.
like, okay, this is what people do, let's have children.
Yeah.
So I believe I was about 20, 23, 24 years old.
Okay.
And so we got pregnant with our first child. I'm working full time as a secretary, and right, secretary,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, I'm just sitting. I was about 20 weeks pregnant at the time. Everything was great. I'm super healthy, eating healthy, like exercising. Everything is great. Um,
Hashtag really healthy.
no, 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 no. Back then, I was not that healthy.
Okay.
Okay. I thought just salads was healthy back then, but
Okay.
no, no, no.
It's been
Now
a
I'm really
journey.
healthy. It took me a while to get here.
I love it.
But yeah, so back when I just thought salads were healthy. I was about like 20 weeks pregnant, and I kind of just like felt something weird happening with me as I was sitting at my desk. Went to the restroom, called my midwife, actually called my OBGYN at the time, and she said, none of those things sound really good. So how about you run to the ER really quick? And I was like, she's joking. I literally on my way, I was like, "Oh, I'm getting off work. Cool. I'm gonna go to Target and get a Snickers because I'm starving." So I run to Target, I get a Snickers, and I was like, "Cool. So I have some time. I'm gonna go to ER." I go to the ER and they're just like, everything is great. Everything looks good. The baby looks good. And then all of a sudden my OBGYN was just randomly there. She walked past and she's like, "Oh, that's my client. That's my patient. Let
Hmm.
me check on her." She checks me and she's like, she literally just like pulls her gloves off and she stares at me and she says, "You are 4 centimeters dilated right now.
At
And
20 weeks.
at 20 weeks, and you're going into labor." And I didn't feel contractions or anything. So I was like, what? I just like, that moment was just like, what in the world is happening? I call my husband, which his name is Lex. I'm sorry I didn't introduce him. His name is Lex, and I called him, and he's like, "What's happening?" I'm like, "You just need to come here." So
Wow.
they're telling me, "We are a small hospital. We can't deliver little babies here. You're gonna, if you make it, if your baby makes it, you're gonna um, have to deliver at Randall's Children's Hospital, which is in like a few minutes over." So they're like, "We're going to put you on an ambulance. You're most likely going to deliver there. But if you don't, like, you'll deliver," because they're just like, it's just progressing so fast that you're most likely going to deliver. And at this point, they can't sew you, they can't do anything because you're so far in
Active
like
labor.
active labor. Um, Fast forward to me making it there, everything is okay. And I make it, I laid for about a week. I laid for a week, just my head literally down, literally not using the toilet, nothing, like literally just like my head is pounding, all the blood is flowing. Just like so much fear in like losing this child, but
Yeah.
also like trying to focus on my faith and like, how do we do this? Like, let's fill the room with worship. Let's pray. Let's do all these things. And like, just remembering to like put on an armor again,
Hmm.
like kind of
Wow.
just learning how to going into a battle and just resting in the community, fighting for you and with you rather
Right.
than like you having to handle everything.
Right.
And so I laid for about a week. And the moment they told me I could use the bathroom because there wasn't like data that, you know, there
Yeah.
they don't have much information. And I got up and sure enough, I was going into labor. And so I lied back down. My friends were in the room with me. My husband wasn't there, and I'm just sitting there and I'm not saying out loud. I'm like, "Oh man, I'm pretty sure I'm having contractions like that are really strong right now." And I'm like trying to avoid like saying that and like, trying to be positive, and then I'm like, "No, it's definitely here." And I'm like, "Girls, like this is not looking good." So I called the nurse. She comes in, and all of a sudden there's everyone in my room, like literally. And so we made it to 24 weeks, which
Okay.
was survival back then.
Yeah.
So they told me if he wasn't 20 If he was 23 weeks, we don't suggest you saving him. If he was 24 weeks, we will help you resuscitate him. So I was like, okay, like there's hope in here. There's hope that, but they're like there's pretty much 80% chance that your baby will go home a vegetable because there's no there's just there it's
Wow.
not he's not developed enough. We're like, okay, all of that. So, anyways, I come all these like about 50 people in my room, like so many people, and they're all screaming at each other. And so they're screaming at me, turn around, do this, take off your robe. And I'm like, I was just so confused
Wow.
because I'm like, what in the world is happening? So apparently his heart rate was going down. They're just scared that he's not going to make it. They rushed me to an OR room. Um, there's no way of apparently delivering him naturally because he wasn't gonna make it. And they lay me down on the side. They tried to do an epidural. They missed the epidural three times. They missed an epidural. They hit a nerve. My body just starts shaking, and I couldn't control myself. And they just ended up intubating me.
Wow.
So at that point, I didn't remember anything until my husband like woke me up, and I'm like sitting there on the bed, and he's looking at me, and I'm like, there's no baby. He died because it's just him and I. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he totally died. And he's like, no, babe, he's alive. He's doing so good. He's breathing. He's doing
Wow.
so good. They had to take him to the NICU, and so I remember coming into the NICU and just seeing him. He was so tiny. I think he was about a little over a pound and six, about like less than a pound and a half. He was a pound and a half, so tiny. Um, but the whole entire road from there, like since we got there, to the point where he passed, he was doing so good. They were completely and utterly confused why he had no brain damage, why he had no
Wow.
hearing issues, why he had no issues with his eyes, like continuously testing him and like just so confused
So
why.
he was thriving
He was
all the way.
thriving. He was thriving amazing. And so that gave me so much hope. And also like just like looking back to like the memories of being in that like in the NICU, just like a place of literally like no hope.
Mhm.
There's literally like your neighbors are dying, and like moms are drug addicts. Moms are smoking in the parking lot and coming back to like trying to be with their babies, and just like so much
Mhm.
brokenness in this like
Yeah.
little unit, um but like I felt like we had so much hope, and like I literally had made so many friends at that time with like my neighbors, and like we like try to pray for them and like unite and like go to all these groups just so we can like kind of uplift each other,
Yeah.
like all these Wednesday groups, everything,
Wow.
I was
Wow.
there all day long
So you
for
were there a total of like he was
50
alive
days. Yeah,
50
50
days.
days, so 2.5 months. He got to a point where he was about 3 pounds, 3 pounds and 3 ounces about, and just looking chunky. I know 3 pounds sounds tiny, but to me that was like he was
A
looking
lot of growth.
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I went home for the night that night, and I came back in the morning about 7 a.m. to stay with him. I right away saw that he wasn't reacting the same. And so I had called the nurse practitioner, and I said, he does not look good. And she said, I'm not able to be there right now, but I'll try to be there in a little to check. And so she was in a surgery, couldn't get there. I kept calling because he just was not looking good. He started to look blue,
Wow.
and I was like, okay, his belly is looking really big, and he just is not looking good. And they are looking at him, but they're telling me I'm wrong. But then but they're still calling their nurse practitioner, and I'm like, okay, I'm definitely not wrong. Something is looking wrong. And so the nurse practitioner finally gets there after about 4 hours of not coming. And she says, "You are so right. He does not look good." They rush him to get all the tests, all the x-rays, and all of that just takes forever. Honestly, it just like it's like a whole day procedure. But these little kids, like they could be gone within an hour because they
Wow.
just don't have the capacity to fight longer. And so once the x-ray comes back, they it just shows that he like the disease is eating him alive inside his stomach. And this disease is called necrotizing enterocolitis. It's basically a bacteria that came from either a dirty hand or
Wow.
like anything that was near him that was not clean,
Mm.
or a bacterium that
Mhm.
was just like he
Wow.
wasn't able to like.
Fight it off.
Yes. And like we don't know, was it us, was it the nurse that night, like I don't know, was it the yeah, there's just so much that I could talk
So at
about.
that point where they tell you the disease is killing him
They
off.
weren't telling me that. No. And so I had so much hope. I called Lek, he wasn't there. And I called him like, you gotta get here. Like, I know you have to go to work, but you gotta get here. They're telling me like he's not doing good. And he's like give him some time. He'll be okay. Like he just didn't believe it,
Wow.
And because they're not telling me he's dying. And so what it was hit nighttime. It's already like nighttime, and he's like, they're telling me that no, I'm sorry. This is morning. Morning. They're telling me that the doctor came in and he's like, "You know what? This is something that is life-threatening." And I was like, "What? You said that you're able to perform a surgery?" And he's like, "Yes, but it is $1 million surgery, or like a little over $1 million surgery. So, do you want us to open him up? Like, do you want us to try to save him, or do you not?" And I was like, "Yes, I want you to try to save my son. Like, there's no doubt about it." And so they right away rushed into his little room. They didn't even take him to the ER because it he was so fragile. Like he wouldn't even probably make it there. So they opened him, and I'm sitting on the floor, and I'm like watching through. They covered some of it, like they wouldn't let me see it. Um, but I'm just sitting on the floor, and I'm just weeping, and I'm just praying, and
Wow.
everybody's walking by me, and it's just I like look like the craziest person. Um and cuz everybody knew he was the healthiest one there at the time. And it's like now all of a sudden I'm sitting on the ground screaming, and it's my child that's like
Wow.
losing his life in a sense. So he walks out, and he's like, "Can we walk to a meeting room with you?" And I was like, "Okay, like this is clearly something's wrong here." And at that point, Lex just got there, so he's kind of getting filled in on what's happening, and they're like, "We don't think he's not gonna make it because we opened him, and like the disease has eaten him alive, basically." And it was just like an excruciating pain, and like just knowing that like he was in so much pain. um
Yeah.
yeah. And so we had to sew him up, and get him off the life support, and basically he passed away in
Was
our
it that day?
arms. It
Wow.
was within like a few minutes. Yeah. It's so the from the beginning to the end of his death, it was about 7 hours. So just to like process that was like, what in the world is happening?
Shock.
So all like our world just shattered right there. Because it was just like our firstborn. Everything was just going perfect. And
Yeah. Yeah.
all of a sudden I went into like a pit of hell
Mm.
of my own. I feel like my husband was dealing with his own way, and I was kind of like dealing my own way. I didn't want anything to do with the Lord. I was so offended at the Lord. And
Wow.
and all the comments like, maybe you did something wrong, you probably sinned, you probably did this, like
Oh
just
no.
like right after like we just went through it. And then it's not from like, it comes from like people, you know that it doesn't come from the right people most of the time. But it wasn't the thing that I wanted to hear. And so my battle between then at that time was like focusing on like thriving in my marriage and focusing on trying to figure out my faith. And
Yeah.
like I remember I shared this before, but like I ordered two books. It was like literally like how to fix my marriage and how to fix my faith. It was like trying to figure out how to do this and like not like lose it all, you know?
So there was still clearly a fight in you because you're a
Yeah, I guess
fighter.
so because we are Armenian. We do not give up.
Oh,
But
Zhenya,
just I think
wow.
I went on a major fight because and like it was so hard for Lex to like see me. I would just like weep with his clothes in my house and just like he would just not even know what to do. You know,
Yeah,
he'd just be like, I don't know what to do. Like
yeah,
I just I don't know
yeah,
how to process this because I also didn't carry this baby for this long and I barely got to know him, you know?
yeah.
Um so it was hard in different levels. I went on a crazy journey of like I didn't go to church for a year. I was afraid to deal with the emotions and the like I just was not ready for the Lord to like tell me anything because I was like you were telling me something but you failed me, you know?
Yeah.
And so I went on this crazy journey of like trying to figure out. I literally remember going to like Mila Ivanov's house and I was like, well, he told me this and this is what happened. And look what this and she's like, girlfriend, this is this is how life is. Like you like the Lord is literally like she literally just showed me or continued it wasn't just her, it was like everybody around me. Like and I'm just like, okay, okay, you're right. You're right. He does love me. Okay, you're right. You know? So just
Yeah.
like going back to the roots,
Wow.
it was just like so clear how like I really just did not know him
Yeah.
at the time.
Wow.
Like and I thought I knew him, you know? Like
Yeah.
um
Because you can know the Lord
yes.
in one way, but when you don't know, when you haven't
Yes.
experienced his nature,
Yeah.
it's really hard to just take someone's word for it because
Yes.
you want to have that experience. You want to have the
Yes.
experience with the goodness of God or what it is like to experience the faithfulness of God, right? So I think it has to become a personal experience.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you this: Was there was there fear around getting pregnant for the second time?
Oh my gosh. Yes. S- So the fear started when they told me I can't have kids until so because Nehemiah was an emergency C-section. And so the fear started when they told me I can't like my cervix just can't hold babies. And so every time you get pregnant, you'd have to get sewed to hold the babies.
Oh,
So I would have to go under anesthesia, under an epidural. Like all this poo is what I would say at this point
yeah,
of my life. But and that fear of like, okay, well, and you might still lose the baby, you know? So like we don't know. Um,
wow,
so with Sahara, so we got pregnant with Sahara after like I think about 6 months of trying, or about 4 to 6 months of trying. Um, we got pregnant with her, and I mean, I feel like at that point I got pregnant with fear.
wow,
I know it sounds bad, but I'm gonna say it. Like I got pregnant with fear at the same time because I'm gonna tell you why. Um, because when I was pregnant with her, so I did the surgery at like 13 weeks. Everything went successful, super painful. Anyways, you heal and you feel better. And at that point, I literally had fear. I literally had like spirit of fear in my home. I don't talk about this much, but
wow,
because like I literally had like I had like this vision of a man following me wearing all black, and literally I'm washing dishes and I turn around and like I almost see his like silhouette. And I don't know I still don't know like what this was. But it was it was there all the time. And I mean, I would always rebuke it and pray. Like, it's not like I'm just like allowing it to stay there. Like,
Right.
no, I'm like, no, you're not here. Like, I'm just seeing things. Like, you're not here. Like, go away. Like, Um, but I would be afraid to even shower, to close my eyes for the water to go on me, to be able to like not see this. You know what I'm talking about? Like, the water is pouring on me. I was afraid to close my eyes so I can shower. Um, every single I was afraid that I was gonna lose Sahara so bad that every single like time I had a contraction, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going into labor. Like this
Wow.
everything, like I wouldn't walk, I wouldn't sit a certain way, I wouldn't like everything crippled me around this pregnancy of saving her. I was so scared to lose her. Like this was like everything to me almost. Um but kind of before that I kind of didn't mention was that like before we got pregnant with Sahara, what we had like we did go through a little bit of a healing in our marriage where um I kind of hit that like I finally went to church. I like just literally sat there and wept
Mhm. Mhm.
the whole worship. And I was just like, oh, he loves me, you know.
I love it.
So like he didn't forget
Wow.
me. And just like realizing, going back, like really just thinking about the whole time, like he was there through this nurse, he was there through this person, like through all these moments that I really like needed him. And like just like actually focusing on like the facts.
Yeah.
Like he was there. Like it's just the way that I felt. Maybe he wasn't there. But feelings aren't always the truth.
Right.
You're just like feeling it. But what Nehemiah did is that's like the biggest thing is like we named him Nehemiah without really like looking up the meaning of Nehemiah, but he truly rebuilt some walls for us.
Wow.
Like he really rebuilt our marriage to
Wow.
be able to begin this journey of like conceiving another child together in unity. And just like rebuilt my relationship with the Lord. I know that there was like fear, but I really believe that if if I didn't lose Nehemiah and I didn't rebuild that relationship with the Lord before I got pregnant with Sahara, I would not have been able to go through losing her. Like I would not be able to get through the battle of getting out of this fear that was following me.
Right.
Like just like cuz I wouldn't settle for it. Like I was like, "No, you got to go. Like there's no way you're going to follow me forever." Um and so really he just rebuilt a lot of things just like he rebuilt the wall of
That's
Jerusalem.
so
And
powerful.
it's so crazy because then we started to look up into the meaning of his name and we're like, okay, like wow, like he really like
Yeah.
this is really what was
Come
inside him.
on.
So going back to Sahara, we birth was a little wild. It was, I did have a VBAC, but it was
Full term, right?
it was full term. Actually, I got induced because
Wow.
a week before, because my doctor told me you don't want to lose another child. Let's get induced. And you guys, I was like, no way. I don't want to lose another child. Let's do this.
Wow.
You know me now. I'd
Yeah,
never,
I know.
I'd never. Ladies, do not ever listen to the heart, please.
Yeah.
I was so scared again to lose her. And so I got induced. Obviously, my body was so not ready to like deliver. And so it was really rough. The
Mhm.
recovery was rough. Everything was rough. Um, I would say like her as a baby, I mean, the other thing did happen was that she got pulled away from me for a little bit and
Mhm.
did she got vaccinated without my consent because they were watching her. so I can get rest. It's a hospital I worked at, so I felt very like comfortable. They watched
Wow.
her for like 30 minutes. I did not know, you guys, I did not know this was not normal. Like, I don't know why I walked into this like hospital thinking like I these people are so trustworthy, like I trust these people. And I'm not saying like you shouldn't. I'm saying like you really should just like
Do your
do
research.
your research. Yes. Like so I didn't know she got vaccinated until I got came to her first doctor's visit, and they told me then. And ever since that day, she's been screaming at home. And so I couldn't calm her down. I could like it was so hard. I came to the hospital to check on her probably like 3 times a week because I was like, I don't know what's happening with her. This is not normal. She's just screaming for no reason. She's eating fine. Like just so many things happening honestly at
Wow.
that point. And up to like 6 months she was extremely hard. She had a reflux and like major reflex where she was throwing up everything, and so they put her on this medicine. And the doctor later called me. He's like, throw that medicine away, the medicine has been causing kids to have cancer.
Golly.
And so I was like, no way, no way. My kid does not will not have cancer. I literally threw I was like, I ended right there. Like I was, like the thoughts like obviously
So, would you say the fear never lifted after pregnancy? There was just a different
different
kind of
fear every
fear.
time. Yeah. But like I kept battling them, but it was a different fear every time. Like I was just in this pit of fear in a different level every time. And like so I just like looked like a paranoid human at all times. um
Wow.
anyways, so man, trying to go past that. I think past that would be she was fine
Beautiful.
yeah, so beautiful, so sweet, just the best, literally the best human. So literally worshiping the Lord. We are like at the time, like we weren't like we didn't have worship at all times playing in our house. And she just like was so sensitive to the Holy Spirit.
Wow.
Like, I don't know, the song Yeshua, she would cry she's not crying. She's like the tears are just going.
Like at
At
1 years
one.
old.
Yeah, at one. And I was like, I never seen that. And I don't know. I never seen
Wow.
that to any kid. So I was just like, I don't know, like it was so sweet. She was truly like she was amazing. Um but it came she was about 15 months at the time that she started to just randomly um have kind of like just crying, really crying. And then I was like, okay, what's happening? Are you teething? Are you? And so I reached out to so many moms, and they're like, she's fine. She's just teething. Give her this med. Give her this med. Nothing is working. I'm taking her outside. I'm going on hikes. I'm going on walks. I'm doing anything. We're not sleeping at night. I'm giving her Tylenol. Nothing is working. So I went to the urgent care 3 times. At, at this point, this is my last time going to urgent care. And this is just beginning of COVID. So everyone is crazy at this point. Everyone's going crazy. Everyone's like, you better have this shield, this thing on. And so I run to this urgent care. It's like, Mom, hold her here. It's like 2 minutes from my house. I'm gonna run there to make sure they don't need any qualifications, any whatever. I come up there and I'm like, hey, we were just here yesterday. Can you please see my daughter? Because she's feeling worse. And at this point, it hit me that something is majorly wrong because she is feeling so much worse. And like, there's like no cough, no fever. Like, something is, it's not a cold. And this lady at the front desk sitting there, and she looks at me and she's like, ma'am, if you don't like our services, you can leave right now. And I was like, I literally just start weeping. I was like, why are you so mean? I just want you to see my daughter. She's feeling miserable after you guys just saw her. And I wasn't yelling, I wasn't being mean. It was literally the Lord
Yeah.
telling through her for me to go somewhere else
Yeah.
because they weren't gonna help me with anything. It was just gonna be a waste of my time. I come home, I'm like, Mom, they're so mean. They won't even like see me. I don't know what to do. Like, I think the insurance only takes that place. And she's like, no, let's go to the emergency room at Legacy Salmon
Mm.
Creek Legacy. We walk in there. It was like 2 hours before they saw us. She's literally dying in my arms, you guys. She's blue. She's not. And at that point, I'm like, okay, like something is just really wrong. I don't know. I was not thinking death. I was just like, something is wrong with her stomach. Her stomach is really hard. It's starting to get really hard and harder and harder with kids. It just like escalates within
Yeah.
hours. And this pediatrician saw me there, the sweetest lady. I've never seen anyone like her. She heard me because before then they just kept telling me nothing is wrong, you're fine. She has an ear infection. She didn't even have an ear infection. She had none of those things. And all the things they were telling me to give her was making it worse. So this sweet pediatrician that worked there, she is like, all the things you're telling me do not sound well. So she's like, her stomach is really hard. She's not looking good. They put me in the room, do all these tests. They come back. She comes back. My mom was with me because Lex was working at the time, but now it's like 6 o'clock. No, now it's like about 7 p.m. And he's off work, but he's like, let me know if you want me to come in a little bit, you know? And so the lady comes back. She, you know, grabs a chair. And I was like, at that moment, I knew. She's like, I just want to talk to you about something. And I was just like, my heart dropped to my feet because I was like, no way. She's like, your daughter has leukemia and she's dying right now. Like she's dying. Like you can tell it's so obvious because she's like not even wanting to respond to us. Um,
Wow.
but she wants me to hold her. So she's still like there. She wants me. She won't like, and so I literally just start screaming. I was like, no, there's no way. I was like, I literally screamed this. I was like, the devil is not gonna do it. Like, there's no way he's gonna win this war. And she's like looking at me and she's like, just like processing this with me. And my mom doesn't speak any English. So she's standing there so confused, but she knows something is wrong. And I'm like, Mom, she has cancer. And she's just like losing it herself. And she's like, there's treatment, she's gonna be okay, like, and I was like, no, like this is not okay. Like you can't like,
Wow.
this is it's not my little girl. Like there's no way. There's no way I'm gonna lose her. Like in my head, it's all I'm thinking about. And so I call Lex. I don't even tell him the news. He comes and he's just like not able to process this.
Yeah.
Like he's so confused. And they're like, we're gonna put you on an ambulance and we're gonna take you to Randall's Children's Hospital. And I'm like,
Wow.
you're gonna take me to a hospital where my child died? You're gonna put another child of mine in there, you know? So I'm like, no way. I don't wanna go there. And so she's like, I'm so sorry. There's no other hospital that we could take you to. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like this is my greatest fear, you know? And so I'm like, I don't want to ride in an ambulance. I don't want to scare her. I want her to be in my arms. So I literally we just go into like Lex's little car and literally a Corolla, 19 something. It's so ghetto, but I love it. Anyways, we're sitting in his car and we're just he just turns on worship and we're just all weeping. Like, we just don't get it. Like, we're just so confused. We get to the hospital and everyone is just like telling us like we they're like, wait, we actually don't know if this is leukemia. This could be worse. Like, we don't know. So they start doing all these tests, all these biopsies, all these all these tests, all these biopsies, and like trying to figure out like what this thing really is.
Yeah.
And at the time, you guys, at the time, I was in a like in a few days of battle. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm losing her." Like, "Oh my gosh." Like, and this is like COVID time, nobody can be there. No, she also had COVID during like the sickness. So, and then we like couldn't have any like support, you know, just like it
Yeah.
was just like the church and the family through the outside.
Yeah.
But you guys, that was so
Wow.
powerful. Like
Wow.
that healed us in that moment. It gave us so much faith. I remember just like stomping like I remember having 3 days of like almost like resurrection of this like anger inside of me towards this thing and like righteousness and like the armor of like this putting on an armor of like 3 days I was putting that on I felt like. And then after those 3 days I got up and I was like no way. Literally we just start fighting like in the spirit and like just turn there was not a day there wasn't worship playing in the hospital in our room. And like I remember like having our church service KM, like I remember like I don't know if you were, I don't think you were leading, I think it was Kate leading worship. And like just constant praying, constant
Mm-hmm.
worship, like
Mm-hmm.
constant prayer, like Ali gathered groups at her house, like just so powerful. Like, and the chemo, they're like, we don't know, we're gonna give her chemo tonight. If it doesn't work, then her body never will not accept it and she probably will die. If it works, she will live
Yeah.
and she'll like be able to live. So it worked. The chemo, like, so I really believe the Lord did heal her then, you know, because she was dying. Like, I think a lot of the times, like, we forget to like thank Him in the big moments. Like, I've gotten like,
Yeah.
you know, like she was dying. Like, I just remember like she wasn't even able to like use her arms and like
Yeah.
eat and stuff like. And then
So
like the
you
next
saw like
I
breakthroughs with
like so much breakthrough. Like I felt like the resurrection literally was like so
mm,
wild to see that. And like so she did like get better and
mm,
she got up. She the next few days we were teaching her how to walk again. And so like she's 16 months at this point. It's very very young and but literally through the whole thing. So like
yeah.
we didn't we didn't really know what else to do other than giving her the Western medicine approach because this was so late in the game
Yeah.
that we weren't even sure that this would
Yeah.
even help her like get better, if that makes
How
sense.
long how long was the fight?
It was 11 months, so almost a year. And within that year, she had done 7 chemo treatments. And I know 7 doesn't sound a lot, but it is it is a weekend of treatment. So you're under anesthesia, you're getting you know, pumped all day long. And you are the week after that week you're at home recovering and the week after is when you feel everything. So you're miserable. Like she's just losing it, throwing up, mouth sores, everything. Like just count I'm constantly in throw up like and it's just like you can't get any food down. Like it's very scary. Like
Wow.
it's a trauma that like is I'm still battling.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you guys, I actually missed the craziest of the craziest facts that happened is when we found out that she has so when we found out what she had neuroblastoma. And we were thinking it was low risk because of the way she was reacting to it. But the doctor ended up coming and telling me that it was high risk, which means that it's stage 4, which means that so there's like treatment was like these 3 things. And then if it's this, it was like these 9 things. Like, you know, it's just an intense amount of like treatment that she would have to undergo. But that same week, that we found out, I went to the bathroom. I started to feel sick, and I was like, "Something's happening with me." Lex like, "You should take a pregnancy test." And I was like, "No way, no way, I'm not gonna take a what? No way." I was like, "This only happened once. How would like
Wow.
this actually happen?" Anyways, so like, I go to the bathroom, I take a pregnancy test, and it's positive, and I was like, "What?" They just sat me down and told
Wow.
me that this is gonna be a 5-year plan for us. She's only is gonna be in remission after 5 years if we make it there. And I was like, "This baby is literally gonna grow up in the hospital. Like, there's no way I want this to be it, like, for this baby." And feeling sick, feeling all of that, like, while I'm taking care of my child, you know? I had so much, like, fear in that, and, um, the moment the doctor came in,
Wow.
I had to tell her that. She was just looking at me like, am I joking?" But then another doctor was like, this baby's gonna bring you hope, like, it's
That's
okay,
right.
like, you're gonna be okay, like, this happens all the time." And I was like, "Really?" Anyways, I could not imagine having anything, so I was going through this whole entire 11 months with being pregnant. And so,
Wow.
um the wild thing is, so going back to like the treatments, after she did 7 chemo treatments. She had a really major surgery to remove that from the big lump from her. It was a long recovery, and it was a little rough. She's little. It's like so hard to, you really have to take care of, like, and it's she doesn't understand that. So,
Wow. There is so much
yeah,
pain and trauma in
so
that
much
journey
trauma. Yeah.
that you probably had to face after her death. But can you talk to me about her final days?
Yes. So, the final days were when, after radiation, I kind of already knew something was wrong because she kept falling again and hitting herself, like, terribly. Like, something just kept going off and on. And I was like, okay. I mentioned it to her doctors multiple times. And then all of a sudden, she started to grow a lump right here. And I was like, okay, this is so weird. And then I took, like, so she would go into the doctors all the
Yeah.
time, like maybe like twice a week. So they saw what I saw. I kept complaining about how she felt. And then the last few days, she was really like, she was just crying all the time. And I mean, this girl has had like morphine, oxycodone, like everything you could possibly think of. And I'm not a parent. I would fight it all. Like, I would be like, "You'll be okay. Like, let's just kind of like try to not give you this. Like, let's just like distract you in some way or form." But not this. This was so painful to watch. This was so painful to watch. But she would just scream at nights all night. And like, actually, this is a fear that I struggle with a lot because, I mean, it's not a fear. It's like something I used to hear her cries after she passed. And like, it
Mm.
would just bring me so much guilt
Wow.
because like I couldn't do anything about it. And she slept in a different room. She never like wanted to sleep with us. So it was like, oh my gosh, I always like was scared, like, if I'm gonna come up to her and she's like dead. Or like there was times I'd come up to her and her her bed is like covered in blood and like, or puke everywhere, and I didn't notice because she didn't make a sound. And so like that was so scary to me. And at that point, I already so the last two so the la- sorry, going back a little
Mhm.
bit, the last 2 months when she had the transplant, she had 2 months of getting a transplant and before her passing. And that was 2 months of us living inside the hospital. This was me being 35 weeks pregnant to about, so like about like to my delivery date.
Wow.
And so I literally just like went downstairs, delivered Solomon and came back to her because I could not. Like his labor was from the first contraction to the last 2 hours. He like flew out of me. The Lord knew
Wow.
he I needed that. Like anyways, and I think the biggest question I get was whether there was fear with like losing Solomon.
Mm.
And sorry, I'm like all over the place, I
No, I
feel like.
love it.
But
Keep
whether there was
going.
fear losing Solomon, and it was crazy because the moment he was born, um it was zero fear. Like it was like I just gifted him to the Lord and I was
Wow.
like, thank you, Jesus, for taking care of him. It was like my mind had shifted so much through this pruning season of like 11 months, like truly pruning season of like 11 months of trying to figure out this relationship with the Lord
Mm-hmm.
and facing all these fears, facing all these traumas,
Wow.
and it was so easy. It was easy. I just gave him. Not since then, he never had anything wrong with him. Like nothing. Like he was just a perfect little child.
Wow.
And so when again going back to the time where she wasn't feeling good and I took her in and they were telling me she was still fine. She was fine. And now I just forced Lex to drive her to the ER because I just did not think she was doing good at this point. The next morning, her head swelled up, her eye was covered in tumors. So everything was just spreading. And as a mom, like when you know. And even though they're telling you one thing, Um, and Lex calls me and he doesn't know it. They're not telling him anything. They're just calling me. And they called me and they're like, your Sahara relapsed and
Mm.
it's not looking good. And I could not believe it. Even though I felt like there was something wrong, I couldn't believe it. Like there was no way I was going to lose her. And I think even from then to the time I remember when you visited me, when you visited, like when Sahara was already at home, like I couldn't believe it. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't I didn't I didn't think that. I for sure knew she was just gonna be fine and she was just gonna get healed. Um but yeah, so we were in the hospital and then they told us there's gonna be treatment. Don't worry, we're gonna figure something out. We can take her to Seattle. We can do something and then 10 minutes later then they come back and they're like, I'm so sorry, there's just nothing we can do. And I think the second very hard moment was then because again we're alone and she is roaring like out of pain and they're giving her morphine and it's not covering her pain. And so like they can't catch up with her pain for like a good 30 minutes of her doing that. Like, and I know 30 minutes doesn't sound a lot, but when a child is crying for 30 minutes, it's a very long time. And she's roaring, like she's like doing like back, like she's like breaking her back because it's hurting so bad. And I looked at her and I remember like I I just kept battling. Like I'm like, this, I know what like reality this is reality, but I know the truth, and the truth is that he can still heal her. And I think we just like kept battling it to the end. And so when we came home, so they finally allowed family to come to the hospital. um we then kept asking them to drive home because that's where she wanted to go. She just kept
Yeah.
pointing at the door. She just wanted to go home. But when we were laying at the hospital, we were laying on the bed. She wasn't saying words for a week. She wasn't saying words for, for a good week because she was just like not having it. Um, and she looked at me. She woke up all of a sudden like this. She's mostly had her eyes closed. She looked at me, and some of my family was there, and she said, "Mama, bye." And I was like, no, like, And I knew she like her spirit was like trying to like leave then, like cuz after that she wasn't there. And I was like, "What? Like how can she even know? Like she's so little." Uh she just turned 2 at the time. And so I just like was weeping with her. And we tried to like keep the environment very like not depressing. Like
Yeah.
cuz I wanted
Yeah.
her to like have hope in the room. Like to know that we're happy. We're not sad, mom and dad. Like
Yeah.
and so we brought her in the house, and in the ambulance they told me that she's not going to make it home. And again, like the fear of like just so many fears. And so I was in the ambulance holding her, and I just like blasted worship. Just like, please, Lord, just let her make it home, like where she loves to be. And I just like, I'm just sitting on the two people, like the ambulance people or whoever, paramedics sitting next to me. They're just weeping. These two ladies, they're just like so touched by her. And they're like, they're telling me, they're like, we are so touched by your daughter. And they're like, help me get her inside the house and help me get her on the ventilator and just like set her up. And then she still lived for a few days. She still was with us. And we were just kind of like, again, putting on an armor, like we got this, we're gonna do this, like she's gonna be okay, like. And I think this whole journey, like my husband was very like, he's very this is gonna be okay. He's like, this is gonna be
Yeah.
fine, like in denial almost, but like,
Yeah.
but in a way I kind of needed that, because I feel like if he was like me, it would be kind of hard to like get through that.
Yeah.
So we really wanted the environment and where she was laying to be full of hope, full of just his glory,
Yeah.
like. And I really felt that, like, and I remember when you
Mhm.
came.
That
Yeah,
was so sweet. I was literally just thinking about that. One of my favorite moments in the final days was walking into your house and feeling such a supernatural peace.
yeah,
And I was almost taken back by you because you were just, there was such a overwhelming peace. And I know that there was a battle because I'm seeing her lay there, then I'm
yeah,
seeing you, and I'm like, this is
yeah,
so wild. And then I'm watching you run upstairs to try to nurse your other little one
yes,
because
that was rough.
that must have been so,
Yeah,
the irony of like this new baby that
yeah,
just came into the world and this other child
yeah,
of yours who's about to exit.
yeah,
So I, yeah, I just even remember how we left that night and I told Vic, I was like, they're going to be okay.
yeah,
Regardless of what happens, I just felt like there was such a fight in you. And now hearing you talk about the journey with Nehemiah and the preparation,
yeah,
that to me is
yeah.
so, so wild.
I didn't realize that until Wild conference. Like everything just like puzzled together
Wow.
for me,
Full circle.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think it's,
Sahara truly touched so many
oh
people.
yeah.
Do
I
you
think,
remember? I mean,
yeah,
obviously you were
yes.
getting the
I think
nonstop
I think
DMs.
all the, yeah, I think when she had passed, she took I remember like going upstairs, and it was pouring rain, and I no, no, no. So I remember I was feeding Solomon as I'm upstairs, as she is downstairs. And at night, the night before that, you can stop me if you need to. I don't
No,
know.
go for
Okay.
it. We love this girl.
Sorry.
People are always asking for longer
Oh,
podcasts. So
okay.
here we have it.
The night before that, I just felt this strong. We would take communion all the time through all the 11 months in the hospital.
Wow.
I would anoint her like crib. She would sleep with like, I mean, all the things. Write scripture everywhere.
Yeah.
Talk, memorize. I would do like constant like, but like I remember sitting in I remember putting her to sleep on the couch, and Lex is like, "You go upstairs because the baby needs you."
Yeah.
And I'll lay on the couch. And I know how he sleeps. He sleeps so hard he wouldn't even know a thing happened. And I just felt this strong like feeling of going downstairs. And I went downstairs. It was about 2 p.m. And I just turned on worship and I took communion. And I
Mm.
really felt like the Lord like was taking her right there, you know? And I was like obviously having a battle because I don't want him to take her. Um, but I took that communion because I don't even know why I did that communion. It was like out of nowhere. I wanted to do that communion. And then the next morning I woke up and I'm um as I was nursing Solomon upstairs, it was so bright and sunny. And I am looking outside and I'm like, Lord, and she's having such a hard time. Like everything is leaking out of her. It's just so hard to watch her. And I was like, Lord, I just want you to do what you think is right. Please just do what you think is right. It's if you're going to take her, I want you to take her. If you're not going to take her, please heal her right now. Um, because it's like so impossible to watch her. And I went downstairs and like maybe an hour after she took her last breaths. And that was so hard because I remember like call me, call Roman. We need to help, like we need to get her back to breathing, you know? And at that point, I wasn't this like jolly, like trying to figure out, give her hope and peace. I was like, no, we need to get her back to life, you know?
Yeah.
And so just like from then on, I was trying to figure out like how to how to get
Yeah.
past through all the feelings.
Yeah.
And I think trying to take that in also like um the other like one thing I want to say is like the big difference between losing Nemi and her with my like walk of faith was so different because I just ran to the Lord. There was no other place that I wanted to be other than his arms, you know? Like there was like if you don't have the Lord, you cannot get through any of those things by yourself. Like there's just no way. There's no way for a living human being to get through all that trauma, to see all of the things that you see. Like cancer is just a word, but like there's so much that comes with it. And I know you know that like my mom was just recently diagnosed with stage 4 cancer that has no cure. And like that's another thing I was like, okay, the enemy really does not want me to
Yeah.
do this podcast because it's like,
Yeah.
where are you with like your faith, you know?
Yeah.
And I think we just stand in the same area where there like hope is all we have. We know what the reality is, but we know what truth is,
Come
you
on.
know? Like that's kind of like what I would,
Wow.
say.
Well, for you to be able to say that, Jen,
I mean, it took
that
a while
speaks
to get here. It
volumes.
took a while to get here. Let's
That was your fight. And
yeah.
I just want to commend you for that. I think that there is so much testimony in your fight, like watching you. Even sometimes, like, I'll just, DM you about something and you're lifting me up. I'm like, this woman. I just know that there was so many battles that you endured. And I can't even imagine and trying to navigate that as a family, trying to navigate
Oh
that
yeah.
as a couple in your marriage, because I know there's a lot there. I feel like we need to record a part 2
Oh
podcast
yeah.
about that, because just watching you unravel, but yet the Lord bring the pieces together, and it's a fight. And I don't want to pretend to tell people that today, oh, it's everything is just,
Yeah, not
peaches and
jolly. Yeah.
cream and jolly, and you've endured all. I think you're still in that battle and still in that fight of faith, but I just honor you for always putting truth above
Yeah.
every experience. And so I just with the last few minutes, what would you say to someone that's in that battle right now? Doesn't matter what their situation is, right? Our circumstances are so different. But like if if you, what would you tell yourself when you were in that hospital room and other people would encourage you? Can you just like speak to the person that
Yeah.
needs life in this moment, because there's something so powerful in that life coming out of you right now?
Mhm. I think I think a few things like first of all, probably give yourself a lot of grace because like there's
Yeah.
nothing that you can control.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
you can
good.
control things with like the fight, you know? But I think the biggest thing is resting in him rather than like sometimes resting is okay. Like you can rest in him and that's okay. Like
Come on.
I remember sitting in the hospital and I'm like, I remember I couldn't even find words to pray because I was like, I feel like I prayed it all. And so I would just say, like, thank you, Jesus. Thank you for being with me.
Wow.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you for being with me. She's having a seizure. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for being here. That's literally all I would say subconsciously. I would say that in my sleep because I would just say it all the time. And I think it's okay to not have the perfect, like, scriptural words to pray, all these, like, beautiful words to say. I think it's okay for you to, like, rest in Him and know that, like, He's good. He's with you. He got you. He will wipe all of your tears. He will take care of all of your fears if you just let Him. Like, you can just rest in him and let him do that.
Yeah.
And I think we
Wow.
always focus on the big battle and like putting on an armor and going with like, you know, the knife and all of
Mhm.
that. And I think it's great. You there's a time and place for that, but sometimes when you're in that hospital room and you just want your father to just like give you a hug and be there and he can do that for you. I think that's
Come
like
on.
the biggest thing that just drove me to like, you know, becoming where I was, what
Yeah.
you know, kind of like
Yeah.
getting me out of those moments is because technically I can't get up and run around while my daughter is resting. Like really, I just he kind of made me do that. He like, okay, you need to rest. Like just rest in me. Like
So good.
knowing that I'm here.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, I think that's the
Wow. Well, thank you, friend, for
yeah.
opening up your heart,
Sorry, that was a lot, you
for
guys.
sharing the depth. No, I love it. I'm here for all of it. And I just even want to honor you for coming on and sharing so
Yeah,
vulnerably. I love your family.
yeah, we love you
I
guys.
love seeing Sahara and your babies.
Yeah, they're so sweet.
I could see her in both of them differently, but
Oh, Sammy is
in
like the
Sammy,
yeah,
oh
her
my
too.
goodness. I think
Yeah.
it's so precious how her life continues to minister to people. And I know this episode will minister to many. Thank you all for joining. Thank you for being with us. I know this one was probably an emotional one,
Oh, I
especially
know.
for
I'm
the
like a
mama hearts
wreck.
out there. Well, just the way that you're able to like take us into all the details, I think that was very, very special. Friends, thank you so much for being with us. I always appreciate you tuning in and sharing with those that you know that this could encourage. And Zhenya, I love you.
Love you, friend.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.